Hi everyone, nice to see you. I'm thinking about Laozi, and he, whoever he was, anyway, his tradition, as I said, led to the sense of delight and play and spaciousness in Zen. So that's why Zen is really so different from traditional Buddhism. It's because traditional Buddhism was do this with your mind, and then this happens and this happens and stuff like that. And so Taoism was the true traveler has no fixed destination and no set time of arrival, which is kind of, I first heard many, many years ago, but it still seems it's good, still helpful. So today we have no fixed destination and no set time of arrival. So here we are. So I'll just say a few things about this great tradition. The first is pretty legendary. The first, the name that can be named is not the eternal name. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. And then the thing about the Tao Te Ching is all these different ways of saying it, the different translations. And there's a joke that among scholars that if somebody says they're working on a translation of the Tao Te Ching, it means they're getting ready to retire because it'll take them forever. So the Tao Te Ching. Where was I? Roaming around bits of things here. The modesty is one of the big things. The modesty in the Tao. And the Tao that can be told is not the true Tao. Names that can be named are not the true names. The origin of heaven and earth has no name. The mother of myriad things has a name. Free from desire, contemplate the inner marvel. With desire, observe the outer radiance. These issue from one source, but have different names. They're both a mystery, the mystery of mysteries, the gateway to all marvels. So, there's the vastness that everything comes from, that feeling that we rest on something that's like a great valley where it's empty. That's kind of marvelous. But then it's not worth more than the leaf or your finger, your hand, whatever you're looking at in front of you. Look at your hand. See? The mystery is in that. The spaciousness is in your fingers, if you look at it. Don't be frightened of it, it's just your hand. So, and you can see, if you look at, I don't know, if I look around my room, I see bookshelves and piled books and things, and that's calligraphy. And then if I look out the window, I see leaves and climbing roses and maple leaves and things, sunlight. So there. And it too is full of eternity and full of, each piece of eternity holds the whole thing, right? So if you're in trouble, in terms of the Tao Te Ching, if you're in trouble, if you're having difficulty, in the center of that, the mystery is too. It's not somewhere else. You don't. That's why Zen is not about squash down your mind so you'll be okay. It's about you. You're okay already. You're okay now. You have deep peace right now. So let's just feel that for a minute. I think, I don't have any real objections to feeling deep peace. So let's have it now. And you can tell the mind does these things. Well, how do I do that? You do that by not doing it. How do I do? How do I be present? You do that by not trying to get present. We just hear. And there's a tremendous peace that's always available to us. It's never not here. It doesn't matter what kind of trouble we think we're in or not in. It doesn't matter what kind of triumphs we're having. It's good to have that peace. It's a good thing. So here we are. And this is, I'll just read random. This is Bill Porter, Red Pine, Bill Porter, who's a kind of friend of our community. And in fact, this book is a gift. It's his translation. It's a gift for David Chadwick, actually. For David, a few old poems from an old path. Put one in your next pot of tea. So I know if Chadwick ran off with my copy of Bill's book. Anyway, I've got his, and I'm not giving it up. And he's away. He's overseas anyway. The ancient masters of the way aimed at the indiscernible and penetrated the dark. You would never know them because you wouldn't know them. I described them with reluctance. They were careful, as if crossing a river in winter. Cautious, as if worried about the neighbors. Reserved like a guest. Ephemeral like melting ice. Simple like a block of wood. Open like a valley. And murky like a puddle. But a puddle becomes clear when it's still, and what's still becomes alive when it's roused. Those who treasure the way don't try to be full. Not trying to be full, they can hide and stay concealed. So you see, I don't know, there's always that move into the spaciousness and the freedom. You can tell, like things like Aikido, where become one with the person attacking you. Things like what came out of this. The Do in Aikido and martial arts is the word Dao, which is Japanese pronunciation of the word Dao. So, but you can feel it. You can feel it everywhere. There's a kind of nice thing here about that I found in Proust about Proust is pretty good on the creative life, and he says, here's the thing, and he talks about how people try to, when they do their creative work, obviously he's talking to himself as well as us, but they try to make it more pleasing to an audience. And in fact, if you get coached to do, say, a podcast or something, that's what people tell you to do, like, well, why don't you be more something else, And it's the same with publishing, and many things. And that's fine. But there's this other thing, and that Proust talks about, and he said, the reason he said, the person of genius willing to avoid the discontents of being unrecognized in their own day. So he's thinking about Beethoven, but some other people, and may persuade he may persuade himself that since his contemporaries lack the necessary hindsight, works written for posterity should be read only by posterity, as much as there are certain paintings that should not be looked at from too close up. However, any craven urge to avoid being misjudged is pointless, as misjudgment is unavoidable. So misunderstanding you is unavoidable, no matter how much you try to explain yourself. And what makes it difficult for a work of genius to be admired at once is the fact that its creator is out of the ordinary, that nobody's like him or her. So it's his work itself which is fertilizing the rare spirits capable of appreciating it, will make them grow and multiply. It was the quartets of Beethoven, numbers 12, 13, 14, and 15, which over 50 years created and expanded the audience of listeners to the quartets of Beethoven. So thus achieving, as all masterpieces do, progress, if not in the quality of artists, at least in the company of minds. Which is largely composed of what was missing when the work appeared, people capable of liking it. So I feel like PCI is a little like that. People really didn't, they said, well, you've got to do mindfulness, don't do this con stuff. And so everybody said, we got a foreign body reaction to cons. And everybody said, it's horrible, it's incomprehensible, it's even immoral. And because you're not helping people and so on. And so, and you should be just like making people like avoid their feelings, things like that. And I don't know, we just doubled down on it. So we made it a decision, and a few of us on this call were there then, and we said, okay. I tried teaching mindfulness a few times, and I just felt bad about it. So nothing wrong with mindfulness, but me teaching mindfulness was a whole other thing. And I didn't really believe that it was the deepest path was the problem. So yeah, so then so we just decided to we wanted to go for the inconceivable. We wanted to go into the mystery. And so, and we did. And now we're a much bigger organization than we were, because I think more people have come to think, oh, it's interesting to go into the mystery. It's interesting to step into the darkness, to step into places that are not already trodden. So this is, anyway, this is Proust, and the creative work of genius must make no compromises with, must take no account of other geniuses who may at the same period be following their own course towards creating for the future a more aware public, which will reward other geniuses, but not you. The work has to create its own posterity. So, we're creating our own posterity. So that's a very, one of the interesting things about the Tao Te Ching and the Tao, the path of the Tao generally, is that we're not trying to manipulate people into liking what we do or into liking us or anything like that. There's this, because the Tao is speaking through us and the Tao is coming from us, not like, it's good to be nice to people and things like that. But if you know what I mean, you're not trying to be someone other than who you are in order to get what you want. So the relationships are not really strategic. We were trying to think of, years ago, we were trying to think of what's a Taoist exercise for people? And actually my book agent came up with this thing of, why don't you just sit down and have a cup of tea with someone without any motives? Particularly if it's your partner and you're in a disagreement, without wanting to change them, without them wanting to agree with you, without them believing your assertions about the nature of the culture right now, without all that sort of thing. Just to know who this person is and to be with them. And so there's a kind of magic in that, don't you think? The deep magic in just appreciating who you are right now. kind of a great thing. So very moving, and so we're not diminished by our own motives when we speak. I want you to like me, and therefore I'm just lying a little bit, but it doesn't matter because you'll like me. But there's something deeper happens when we don't have to do that. We can, nothing wrong with being charming, but there's something deep about what's really going on with us. Leads to a much deeper sort of intimacy, and that's what being in the Tao together is, I think. The problem with doing meditation, it's a well-known thing, the problem with doing meditation, doing the path because you want a particular thing, it's okay, but the problem is you might get that thing and then you don't get freedom and you don't get awakening, you don't get the Tao. So it's a much vaster thing if you can actually if you can just rest on the uncertainty and the mystery, it's going to be okay. In fact, that's the only place we can rest. So let me read another. Oh, and here's another there's a fun thing. There's a teacher called Shu Yun. I think this is by him. I don't know if that's really by him, but who lived for a very long time and was one of these old Chan, kind of Taoist in a way, teachers who he lived 119 years like Jiao Zhou, just wandering around through China, and here's a poem. Searching for the Dharma. You've traveled up 10,000 steps in search of the Dharma. So many long days in the archives, copying, the gravity of the tongue and the profundity of the song make heavy baggage. Here, I've picked you a bunch of wildflowers. Their meaning is the same, but they're much easier to carry. So, there we are. The source of heaven and earth, elusive as gossamer. Use it, it will never fail you. So, and you can feel this sort of thing in all through Zen of the beauty of the incompleteness. There's a great, right at the end of the Book of Serenity, which is one of the major koan collections, I suppose, along with the Blue Cliff. It's the big canonical koan collection, and there's a head monk who wants to be part of the temple, and he wants to take over the temple, and his followers want him to take over the temple. But there's the attendant of the previous Grand Master. I said, well, I don't know. Let me ask him some questions. And so he does, and the head monk gives intelligent but sort of pompous and certain answers, and the attendant says, no, I'm not going to agree to you taking over the temple. and so the guy says, I'll prove it. I'll prove I'm worthy. And so pass me some incense, and they pass him some incense, and he has this samadhi power. He dies while the incense. If I weren't worthy, I wouldn't be able to die while the incense is burning. And so he lights the incense, and then he dies. And then the attendant of the previous Grand Master says, you can die sitting or standing, but that's still nothing to do with the late Master's understanding. And it's like that sort of certainty that's sort of destructive of you and everyone else. But the thing here, there's a Taoist side to all this, or Tao Te Ching. He just said, when you contend, it's not enough. When you defer, there's extra. When you, if he had simply said the common master says, if you simply said, "I'm not as good as you," that would have been a perfect response. Yeah. And so people like D.T. Suzuki, who was one of the major people on the first way of bringing Zen to America, actually, bringing Zen to the West. Then Dai sets means great blockhead. So that the blockhead, you're a blockhead. That's part of the Zen thing. If you're a blockhead, there's nothing in your head, so you must be good. You must be a good man. You must be a good. I'm not as good as you. That's as good as you. So, and you notice how much we spend our days, thinking, well, notice me. I just said something clever and you didn't notice that. Or, I haven't put my makeup up on yet. I can't be looking good. Things like that. So whatever we have, well, do I look fat in these jeans? So the answer is whether you do or not, it's the Tao. And that's so lovely, really. So and you can pretty much pick. This book has been it's been everywhere, all around the world. It's been translated. There's arguments about this, but it's been translated as much as the Gita is apparently the most translated book, and the Bible next, and the Tao Te Ching next. But it depends. Some people think the Tao Te Ching has been translated more. So here's Basho. Almost no one sees the blossoming chestnut under the eaves. So just to see the little thing, that's your true life. And we go racing off to see something else. But here's the chestnut blossoming under the eaves. And he's going to see the beautiful place, Kasashima. Where's Kasashima? Lost in the rainy season on a muddy road. So a poem about not making it to the place we were planning to make it to today. At the royal tomb, what does it remember, this remembrance grass, this memorial grass? Yeah. What does Memorial Day remember? And then there's just that sense of the eternity of the changes in things. It's very, you can tell. So Basho actually studied Zhuangzi, who was the other great Taoist master, and he just traveled with Zhuangzi all the time. But he was very interested in Taoism. Monks and morning glories through many generations. The law of the pine. The pine tree standing over the temple. So. Cool crescent moon shining faintly high above feather black mountain. So you can tell that haiku poets took this whole thing of seeing the insignificant and the small, the ants and the little pebbles and small new leaves and things like that. And so what's in you that you think is insignificant or you think isn't worthy? From the point of Laozi, it is worthy. It's not a problem. His story is that he was an archivist for one of the great dynasties in northern China, in the farming country on the Great Plain there. He was the archivist, the imperial archivist, but then the emperor changed and took all the archives somewhere else. He's an archivist left there with no archives, which is a very Taoist sort of idea, I suppose, really. And Confucius came to, in the legend, there's a lot of accounts, not all of them Taoist, of Confucius coming to visit Laozi. And and Laozi said, basically, you're just trying to give people all these rules about how to be good. It's just going to make a disaster. The shadow, the dark side of that will rise up and eat it. So you have to be free and open with things flowing through your mind like that and your heart. And then when Confucius went back to his friends, they said, did you teach him? And he said, he's a dragon. You can't teach him. So it's kind of sweet. And so, but then he, shortly after that, having no archives, he decided he would leave the world he knew and the court and the intrigues and the contests because he wasn't going to learn anything without the archives. And so he headed west. Instead of going back east where his homeland was, he headed west. And there's a great pass that's a a kind of choke, military people would call it a choke point, where if you come through, you pretty much have to go through this pass. And so there was a notable official who was a practitioner guarding the pass, and he dreamed of a purple cloud coming to the pass. And so he thought, I don't know, something's up, I better go and watch over the pass. And then Laozi came through, and he thought, that's the sage that my dream was talking about. And so he snatched Laozi and said, I realize that you must be going away. You're going into the west to disappear into the mountains among the other sages. So then he says, would you please write something down for us so you don't leave us without any wisdom at all? And so the story is that Laozi did stay for a while and wrote down, the way that can be named is not the eternal way, and so on. So, and then there's a grave. He has a grave near the pass, which Red Pine, Bill Porter, visited, and he said it had been knocked down by the Red Guards in the Cultural Revolution, but nobody bothered to put it up. It might be up by now again, but and so he said, but it's also said that his grave is far off to the west among the mountains where he disappeared to, but his grave is here too. And he said, which is true? And the abbot of the new little temple said, they're both true. So it's uncertain. Everything rests on uncertainty. So let's, I'll read you one more of his things, his pieces here. Instead of pouring in more, better stop while you can. Making it sharper won't help it last longer. Houses full of treasure can never be safe. The vanity of success invites its own failure. When your work is done, retire. This is the way of heaven. The best are like water, bringing help to everyone without competing, choosing what others avoid, hence approaching the Tao, and choosing what others avoid. So you're not frightened of your own sorrow or difficulty, and then getting close to the Tao through those gates, through the dark gates. Dwelling with earth, thinking with depth, helping with kindness, speaking with truth, governing with peace, working with skill, moving with time, and because they don't compete, no one speaks ill of them. So I remember reading this when I was really I hadn't run into koans yet, but I just knew I needed something. This was one of the things I ran into and felt if I read it, it was like being washed in cool water. It was a nice cleansing quality. Tess Beasley, you got anything to say?
Now that everything's fallen out of my mind, I have to see if something comes.
Very
It
good.
did feel like that. At the beginning, you said something, I'm not going to remember the exact phrasing, but how I heard it was the near guarantee of being misunderstood sometimes. And that was really sitting with me because I don't know, I was thinking about how many times in my life I've been in positions that maybe a few people or a lot of people would think, I don't know that you belong in that position, or where did you come from, or how did you get here, or who are you, or and how that became a really deep practice of that kind of I guess you also use the word modesty or humility, but of recognizing a fact that I can't convince anyone of anything, and trying to prove something or trying to have people have a particular experience, or justifying or defending or any of those kinds of things about myself was going to only make it worse. And how often talk about this a lot with people, just the vulnerability and the modesty, but the kind of trying to have fidelity to just the moment you're in and the being you are and what appears to you, and knowing when you leave other things will appear to you, or knowing that someone else might not receive it the way you want them to, or knowing that you actually don't have any idea what that moment should amount to or come to or be resolved by or anything, but just the stepping into it and seeing what appears, and then knowing that the new moment will arrive and something else will come. And just the kind of fluidity of that seems very part of the Tao, as you're speaking of it today, and of Laozi. Yeah, I think that might be all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, not explaining things is the Tao. Not saying I'm better or worse. John Joseph, is there anything you'd like to say?
You mentioned something about allowing our minds to be a national park, and I love that image, that allowing our minds to be sort of that wild and free and beautiful. And I thought how often I hold things back, and uh, that's a kind of it's not necessarily wrong, but there's an opportunity, it seems, to allow that freedom, the freedom to come in. And it made me think of all the animals coming into our suburban neighborhoods, where sort of the nature is naturally sort of gently pushing into us. And so we got bobcats and mountain lions on videos, and meet coyotes on nighttime dog walks. And it's kind of cool, where if we just maybe stop pushing back, that naturalness will come. It's kind of a nice image for me.
Very good. That's a coyote. Let's turn around and go the other way. Very nice. Alison, you want to say anything?
I was thinking about the way, it's a little bit like the national park image, where not placing as something that even something good, it's very popular. You see this all over, particularly Buddhist magazines or whatever, that I'll have some good intention. I'll start each day with some kind of proclamation about I'll be I don't know, I'll be kinder, or I'll be more less bad-tempered, or whatever the thing is. But how placing uh, even something that would be so-called, you think would be desirable in into my situation, into the moment, is already, I'm at war with it. I'm already then, if I find I'm irritable, or then that becomes something I'm at war with, that's already here. I was thinking about that with my daughter lately, and in the last month or so, she's had something in her life that it's really upsetting her, and she's just, every exchange we have is deeply fraught, and it feels like an absolute minefield of as a mother. so so as soon as I think um, I'd like her to be happier, or I'd like her to be less upset, or I'd like her to work through this situation, then if she feels that from me at all, or I would like her to feel my support, I would like her to feel that I'm here for her. And even that, I can see that wanting her to feel anything at all is experienced by her as tremendously coercive. She's like, singing, she's like the princess and the pea. Anything that I even a little bit want her to feel or not feel, even if it's something good, she just goes absolutely insane, and she can't sleep. And so I get I send these supportive, loving texts to her, and I get back these deeply enraged, irritable responses. And as soon as instead of want her to feel my support, which is really about me not wanting to feel like a bad mother, that's very different than simply offering my support. That's different than wanting her to feel something. So, as you said, I will be misunderstood, including by myself, which is kind of fun.
We might say especially by yourself. Courtney, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, feeling like super tender being here today, thinking about Chris with the fawn and the helplessness of the inevitability of misunderstanding each other. One thing I've been thinking of is, I think most of you know that I'm a sign language interpreter. And one thing that comes with that role is when you make a mistake, it doesn't get to be hidden. Everybody gets to see it. And I've been noticing and working with Tess a lot of projections that I'm making, that like everybody has this opinion about me doing a lousy job. But if I'm able to like see inside that it's me bringing that, and even if I can just admit it to myself, it just completely changes the experience. Like there's nothing wrong with if I made a mistake. There's nothing wrong if I misunderstood something. Like that's just what's here. And how much joy is really in that? Like it's all okay.
Yay. The joy in that is true. It's a mistake, all the way down, just all the way down to the joy at the very bottom. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you very much for coming. Next week we have the wonderful illuminated Tess Beasley. the Dawn's Dragon. So we have her. So come and enjoy Dawn's Dragon next week.